Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa. And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. The Department of Foreign Affairs confirms the arrest and detention of 3 Filipinos in China on charges of suspected espionage. The Chinese allege that the 3 Filipinos have been spying on their country's military deployments.
A congressional candidate in Pasig City is facing huge backlash after making lewd jokes against women and single mothers in a campaign rally. The candidate has since apologized, but the Comelec says it may still pursue a disqualification case against him.
Speaking of the elections, another petition has been filed before the Supreme Court this week, seeking to put an end to political dynasties. We will be speaking to one of the petitioners, former Supreme Court Associate Justice Antonio Carpio, about these petitions' chances later on.
We have to be very careful about what's happening. Alam nyo naman po, hindi naman ito yung unang time na meron tayong ganitong issue with China. And they have their own version of events in everything that happens.
Philippine authorities are investigating the arrest of 3 Filipinos in China that have been accused as spies by the Chinese government.
The National Security Council approached the issue with caution because they say it just might be one of China's propaganda activities.
But China insists it had adequate reason, even alluding to cases of Chinese similarly being arrested in the Philippines for alleged espionage. Camille Samonte has tonight's big story.
China Daily reported 3 Filipinos in China got arrested for alleged espionage activities. One is allegedly a long-term resident and found repeatedly loitering near military facilities. Eventually, investigators alleged that he acted under the remote direction of an operative for the Philippine Intelligence Service. The article also named 2 other Filipinos who work under said intelligence operative to collect sensitive information. The report also quoted Chinese authorities saying the Philippine Intelligence Agency recruited and trained Filipino nationals living in China to gather information on the country's military deployments. They were allegedly promised rewards and even a monthly salary. China Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Yakun says they will definitely focus on this case, but will also ensure that the rights of all those involved would be observed. Go even alluded to the so-called concocted Chinese spy cases in the Philippines that created stigma and politicization, and urged Philippine authorities to stop the shadow chasing and false accusations. The Department of Foreign Affairs has already confirmed the arrests and assured the embassy will provide them legal support. They say they have also reached out to the Chinese government to ensure due process is followed.
Protecting the rights and the interests of the said Filipinos remains the prime priority for the Philippine government. The Philippine Consulate General in Guangzhou is providing all necessary assistance, including appropriate legal support for the said Filipinos. The department has conveyed to the Chinese government to ensure that these allegations are tried with due process and with full respect to the rights of the said Filipinos in accordance with domestic law and the Philippines-China Consular Agreement.
The National Intelligence Coordinating Agency declined to comment for now. For its part, the National Security Council said it is handling the report with caution and is currently in the process of investigating the basis of the arrest.
We have to be very careful about what's happening. Alam nyo naman po, hindi naman ito yung unang time na meron tayong ganitong issue with China. And they have their own version of events, right?
Yes.
In everything that happens in Baho de Masinloc, and especially in Ayungin Shoal, there's always this element of propaganda to show to the world an image, no? And signals to the rest of the world from Beijing. So we're taking this very delicately.
Recall that prior to this, successive arrests have been made on Chinese nationals said to be caught doing espionage activities in the Philippines. At least 5 were held for wandering around military bases and government officials with communication and data gathering equipment and vehicles. Some Chinese have also been held after taking photos of Philippine Coast Guard ships in Palawan. For News 5, Camille Samonte, we are One News.
Okay, let's go on over to The Hague, where drug war victims have started organizing themselves for the confirmation trials against former President Rodrigo Duterte come September. We have our Mon Gualvez reporting to us live from The Hague. Hi, Mon. What update can you give us from over there?
Sean, in response to the International Criminal Court Chamber's order, the registry has submitted its observations on the participation of victims on the crimes against humanity case against former President Rodrigo Duterte. The report included its recommendations on how participants of the trial should be chosen.
Many victims and families affected by the Duterte administration's war on drugs have already expressed intent to cooperate in the International Criminal Court trial. In fact, some of them are already here in The Hague, Netherlands.
Gusto po na mag-participate ng mga biktima ng war on drugs. At kung kakailanganin po, pwede po sila at gusto po nilang mag-testify.
In the registry's proposed application process for the victims, it recommended the typical A-B-C groupings for ICC trials. Group A will have those who were clear victims and are automatically qualified to participate in the trial. Group B are those who do not qualify, while Group C would be those that need more assessment.
The purpose is just to organize the framework on how are we going to kind of prepare for the victims to be able to present their applications to the judges in order to seek the possibility of to participate.
The Victims Participation and Registration Section, or VPRS, reveals these recommendations have been developed out of consultations with victims themselves within the span of 3 years. First was in 2021 via more than 200 representation forms of more than 1,000 families and individuals. Then in 2022, where 8 represented around 300 victims. And in 2023, where there are 5 victim representations. Application forms with all the required pertinent information were provided, and prosecution had to ensure these were accurately filled out. That's especially because per ICC regulations, prosecution specifies who to present to court investigations. Participants can either be victims or witnesses, or both. In fact, in ICC practice, it's actually uncommon for victims to serve as witnesses. And ICC allows legal representation for them, as well as ensures there is ample security for anyone who intends to participate.
Meron naman pong facility yung ICC na makipag-ugnayan po yung any potential witnesses or any potential person na meron pong evidence. Hindi po kailangan pumunta kung meron talagang heightened security risk at kung meron naman pong online na facility. O isa po yan sa mga mga precautionary measure. Pwede rin nga na kung mag-testify ng any witness sa ICC, in-camera proceedings lang. Ibig sabihin po, hindi na po siya ipapalabas sa online at naka-blur lang yung kanyang identity.
On the part of the defense, ICC says they can file any motion before the confirmation of charges in September, even a request for the former president's interim release. The ICC admits former President Duterte is the first who was arrested and brought to The Hague from a non-member state. That's why Duterte allies warned the ICC to make sure it follows due process in handling the former Philippine president's case.
I want the ICC to continue, pero habang linalabag nila ang sarili nilang Rome Statute, at malinaw naman kung paano nalabag ang Rome Statute sa pag-aresto kay Tatay Digong at doon sa pagpapatuloy ng preliminary investigation, miski wala nang jurisdiction, sila nang gumagawa ng dahilan para sa mga makapangyarihang bansa na wag maging miyembro ng ICC.
The ICC is a court that has been created by the states parties as a permanent court. And I believe that this shows the commitment of a large community of states, actually 2/3 of the world states. It's for the judges to say what is the law. It's not through comments in media.
Ladies, just now, as you can see behind me, Hanelet Avancenia, together with her daughter Kitty, arrived here at the ICC Detention Center where they will visit the former president inside. At kani-kanina lang before we start on air or we got on air, katatapos lamang yung pagbisita naman ni Vice President Sara Duterte. Although VP Sara is not scheduled today, she was allowed to have a phone call with her father. At umabot yan ng more than 30 minutes, no? It was in English dialect or language kasi nga the phone call is being recorded with the ICC personnel at pinayagan ang mag-ama na makipag-usap sa isa't isa via phone call. At ilan sa mga points na binanggit sa atin ni VP Sara during the interview were una, she's worried because the medicines of her father from the Philippines were not allowed inside the ICC detention center. Although inassure naman sila ng medical team na nag-handle dito sa ICC Detention Center na they will take care of the former president. Hindi lang daw kasi sila, nasa kultura daw kasi ng mga Dutch dito na hindi sila masyadong reliant sa or nagre-rely masyado sa mga gamot, no, in this kind of conditions. Ang pangalawa na punto, sinabi din ni Vice President Sara that she is now planning to come back home dyan sa Pilipinas, and dahil tapos na raw yung inintay niyang dokumento na isumitin niya na yan sa ICC. Ano itong document na to? This is actually in relation sa bubuo ng defense team ng kanilang kampo. So she did not give us any other updates with regard to who is the final attorney or lawyer that will be part of their legal team. Pero ilalabas yan possibly today or by Monday through their lead legal counsel, Attorney Nicholas Kaufman. Ang sinasabi din niya, she actually clarified that all of their, yung mga ginagastos nila dito, sarili daw nilang bulsa galing. No? She is not using any other money, especially of the governments. And she also said na hindi sila tatanggap ng anumang donasyon mula sa iba't ibang tao para lamang sa kanilang mga ginagastos dito nga sa pagpunta sa The Hague as they accompany their father while here in the Netherlands habang hinaharap nga itong case sa ICC. At isa pa, talagang magkakaroon na nga daw sila ng relyebuhan, no? They will take turns. Now, naaalis si VP Sara, although hindi niya kinonfirm kung kailan specifically, may iwan si si Veronica Kitty Duterte, and then papunta daw dito si Congressman Paolo Duterte para nga tumulong din sa pag-assist sa kanila. At isa pa sa mga nabanggit dito ni VP Sara is yung hindi daw siya umaasa ng justice sa ginagawang investigation ng Philippine government in terms or with regard to her father's arrest dito nga sa ICC sa The Hague, Netherlands. Ladies.
Okay, maraming salamat sa iyong update. That was Mon Gualvez of News 5 reporting to us live from The Hague in the Netherlands.
A Pasig congressional candidate is in hot water over a lewd joke he made in a campaign sortie.
Minsan sa isang taon, ang mga solo parent na babae na nireregla pa. Nay, malinaw, nireregla pa. At nalulungkot. Minsan sa isang taon, pwede sumiping ho sa akin. Yun nung interesado, magpalista na ho rito sa mesa sa gilid. Hindi, biro lang ho, may asawa na ho ako. Kaya ito sasabihin ko sa mga nangangarap, mamamatay ka, di mo ako matitikman.
Attorney Ian Sia's play on words caught the ire of netizens as well as some of those who attended the said rally. Others even expressed their dismay over other candidates who seemingly enjoyed his joke. Realizing his mistake, Sia immediately issued a public apology.
Inahako ko po ang responsibilidad sa mga nabitawan ko pong salita. I'm sorry po na lumabis po ang aking salita at mali po ang napili kong biro para po magpatawa sa isang political purpose. Sa mga nasaktan ng mga solo parent, lalo na ang akin pong paghingi ng patawad at paumanhin. Hindi ko po intensyon na makasakit.
That apology might be too late, though. The Commission on Elections has called on Sia or summoned him to answer within 3 days why he should not be charged with violating the COMELEC resolution against bullying and discrimination, which could result to his disqualification from the midterm polls.
Nakakalungkot nga po na isang kandidato na abogado pa man din po ang nagpahayag ng ganito, no, na maaring magdulot ng isang election offense o tinatawag po natin na criminal case na may pagkakakulong ng 1 hanggang 6 na taon, pagkakatanggal ng karapatang bumoto at perpetual disqualification to hold public office.
We're going to take a quick break, but coming up, we'll talk to former Supreme Court Associate Justice Antonio Carpio about their petition to end political dynasties in the country. Is this still possible, and how can it be done? Catch that when we return. Keep it here on One News.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. We're revisiting one of the week's top stories. That is another move to compel Congress to finally pass a law against political dynasties. Groups led by the Sambayan Coalition filed a petition asking the Supreme Court to direct the Senate and House of Representatives to enact an anti-dynasty measure. The petitioners noted that there have been over 30 bills filed in Congress to stop the practice, but none have come close to passage. It's not clear how the High Tribunal will handle the new plea. Back in 2013, it already denied a similar petition filed by the group of the late Vice President Jovisto Ginggona. The SC invoked separation of powers between the judiciary and legislative branches of government. What are the chances of the new petition this time around? Let's ask Isambayan lead convener, former Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio. Welcome, Justice, to The Big Story. How hopeful are you after two petitions have already been dismissed by the Supreme Court? What's different this time?
Good morning, ladies. Good morning to our viewers. There were two petitions before that were dismissed, but today, after about 12, 13 years, circumstances have changed because today, about 80% of the members of Congress belong to political families, and about 50% of LGUs are controlled by political families. And we have witnessed, and this has triggered really our petition, the 2025 budget, where for the first time, the budget for education was not given the highest priority, in clear violation of the Constitution. What was given the highest priority was the public works, where the congressman inserted a lot of pork barrel and zero allocation. No allocation was given to PhilHealth. And the vast majority of our poor people rely on PhilHealth, yet Congress did not allocate a single centavo to PhilHealth. And also they reduced the budget of the AFP modernization, which we really need to defend the West Philippine Sea. And what did Congress do with the money that they took out from this from PhilHealth, from DepEd, and from the AFP modernization? They put it into the budget of public works, and they increased their pork barrel. And they also created a new program under the SWD called ACAP, which did not originate from the House, did not originate from the Senate, but was just invented by the BICAM. So we are really saying that if this continues, this will only get worse. And the culprit of all of this, the root cause of all this problem, is that Congress is controlled by political dynasties, and the political dynasties enact the budget, and they insert the pork barrel in the budget so that they can be elected in the next election. So it's a vicious circle. And the people suffer because infrastructure keeps on getting worse. We are falling behind our neighbors because of corruption in infrastructure. And it's about time really to force the issue that we have to enact now an anti-political dynasty law. Thank you.
You're saying, Justice, that the dire situation the country is in may persuade the High Court to reverse its view about the separation of powers.
Yes, because there is a provision in the Constitution which was not found in the 1935 or 1973 Constitution. The framers strengthened the Supreme Court by giving it what we call the extraordinary certiorari power to correct any grave abuse of discretion by any branch of the government or any agency of the government. Branch of the government refers to the executive department and to the legislative department. So actually, the Supreme Court has the power to correct any grave abuse of discretion. This is an exception to the separation of powers. Precisely because of our experience in martial law, where the executive became abusive in terms of accumulating, acquiring, or usurping the powers of Congress. The executive became Congress. The executive passed down promulgated decrees, which are laws. So the executive absorbed the powers of Congress. And so the framers of the Constitution gave the Supreme Court this extraordinary certiorari power to correct any grave abuse of discretion by the legislature or the executive. And we are invoking this power of the special power of the Supreme Court.
That's what was interesting. In your petition, you did mention that their inaction is actually already, against the Constitution. Do you think, Justice Carpio, having been in the SC, that there is precedent to think that the highest court would kind of revisit, will abandon their previous decisions in favor of changing times?
Yes, I am hopeful because of the changed circumstances. Before, when the Supreme Court issued its decisions in those two cases, it was not yet very apparent that there was grave abuse of discretion. But today, the grave abuse of discretion is so clear, so patent, so apparent that there is reasonable ground. There is solid ground for the Supreme Court to use its extraordinary certiorari power.
But for example, it does get through and the Supreme Court does mandate Congress to legislate this. We know during that process, a lot of things get shaken around, things disappear from the original form. How can the Supreme Court, kumbaga, keep them on track and make sure that the provisions that come out are actually worthwhile and valuable and will help us?
Well, if the Congress will enact an anti-dynasty law that is not acceptable to the people, then the people can mount a people's initiative to amend that law, and that is that will be the remedy. The remedy will be the hands of the people, in the hands of the people, through a people's initiative.
But just to add more context to this issue, I wanted to ask, are political dynasties inherently bad for you? Because you have political families arguing that they have done well for their constituents and that this allows the continuity of projects within their district, their city, or their province. How do you respond to that, Justice?
Well, the evidence shows the contrary. In places where the political dynasties are entrenched, these are the provinces or cities that are most backward, the most undeveloped. And the people are kept poor or uneducated so that they will rely on ayuda. So we have to correct this now. The evidence is there. The Ateneo School of Government have gathered the evidence, and the evidence is overwhelming.
And Justice, should this law be crafted? I mean, how should it go about? Is it the total ban on political dynasties, families? Because there was one proposal to have to not allow political families to serve at the same time, but to allow them to serve consecutively. Kumbaga, bawal ang sabay-sabay, pero pwede daw po yung magkasunod. Is that allowable
Well, there
for
are
you?
many variations, and there are just too many variations, so I will leave it to Congress to enact what they feel will be an acceptable definition of political dynasty, acceptable to the people. We have an example in the BARM, where the regional government passed an anti-political dynasty law, where only one, I think it allows only one member of the family to be in the regional government in an elective position, and one also for a local elective post. So there are many variations here, and we will see how the Congress will decide.
Justice Carpio, if we may revisit a decision you had penned in 2013 wherein Atong Paglaom versus the COMELEC, wherein you, ironically, this was a unanimous decision by the High Court, which allowed a broader definition of party lists, which was taken advantage by dynasties. Do you regret? What is your feeling about this decision
my
you penned?
decision broadened, allowed more members, more party list members, because before that, the decision of the court was very strict, and the entire 20% that the Constitution allows for party list members was never filled up. So my decision allowed it to be filled up because the Constitution itself says that the reserved seats for marginalized sector shall be good only for 3 terms, the first 3 terms. It's there, very specific. The framers were very clear that after 3 terms, the marginalized sector should be able to stand on their own and compete with the regular political parties. And so more than 3 terms have passed, so it was time for us to follow strictly the Constitution. And even before, even within the 3-year period, the entire 20% has never been reserved to the marginalized sector. Only half was reserved to the marginalized sector, but the law that was passed did not reserve it for all.
But
so
Justice,
there was, in fact, it did not comply strictly with the requirement of the Constitution that only 50% of the party list should be reserved to the marginalized sector.
but now you see that
But
this
that my
definition
decision
has
opened
been
up the party list system so that the entire 20% can be filled up. But unfortunately, because of the political dynasties invaded the party list system.
Exactly.
They formed their own party list because there is no anti-political dynasty law.
Okay.
We
pasok
opened
din
up
yun.
the party list, but there should have been a concomitant. At the same time, the party list, the anti-political dynasty law should have been
the antidote.
enacted pursuant to the Constitution. The Constitution creates this party list, but to protect the party list system, there must be an anti-political dynasty law. And that was never enacted. That's why there's urgency, because the political dynasties have invaded the party list system.
Hostaged. Justice Carpio, may this decision of the Supreme Court, while your petition is still pending, may this be revisited? But can someone petition the High Court about this 2013 decision?
No, because my decision conforms to the Constitution. The Constitution says after 3 terms, it shall be an open party list system. There will be no reserved list seats for the marginalized sector. But what the remedy there is to pass an anti-political dynasty law so that the political dynasties will not invade the party list system.
And Justice, what's next for your group? Should the Supreme Court dismiss your petition?
Again?
What's next for your group? Justice, kung sakaling ma-dismiss po itong petition nyo ng Supreme Court.
If it will not be granted? Well, if it will not be granted, you can just imagine the political dynasties will become more entrenched. They will increase their pork barrel. There will be the infrastructure system of the Philippines will deteriorate, will fall further behind our neighbors, and the people will just rely on ayuda, but the exchange for that, the price of ayuda, is the continued existence of the political parties. It will be terrible for our society. It's terrible for our democracy.
Right. If I may just be allowed to switch a topic, the SC also just concluded the oral arguments for the PhilHealth Fund transfer. That's the 89.9 billion pesos from last year. What did you make of the entire process, Justice? Just your thoughts.
Well, I am hopeful that the Supreme Court will grant us our petition and will order the government to return the 60 billion that has been transferred by PhilHealth to the National Treasury. I expect that we will be successful in this petition on PhilHealth.
Okay, so it could be possible, right? The Supreme Court could order the return of the 60 billion that has been transferred, or they could also not. Am I right in understanding that?
Well, the Supreme Court could decide it that way, but if the Supreme Court says that the transfer was unconstitutional, then it follows that the funds should be returned.
Okay.
Justice Carpio, if you may allow us to shift to a third topic in as much as we have you. Well, there are some sectors of the Philippines who are saying that the disclosure by our chief of staff of an impending invasion of Taiwan was alarmist. What is your own view?
Can you repeat that again?
Our chief of staff had given a speech before the Northern Luzon Command disclosing that the troops have to prepare for what he sees as an impending invasion of Taiwan by China. How would you assess the situation?
Well, that is a routine matter because China has announced that it plans to invade Taiwan, reunify Taiwan with the mainland by 2027. So that is a public knowledge, and we have to prepare for that. Why? Because any invasion of Taiwan by China would mean that China will seize the Basi Channel. The Basi Channel is the area, the waterway between Taiwan and Batanes. And many parts of the Basi Channel actually form part of our territorial sea because we have many islands there. So if China will blockade or seize the Basi Channel, they are actually seizing Philippine territorial sea. So we have to be prepared for that because we cannot allow any country to seize our territorial sea.
Well, we thank you so much. A pleasure speaking to you as always, former Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio.
Right, well, here's a bit of good news to end the week, as inflation for March drops to 1.8% from the previous month. The Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, puts average inflation for the year so far at 2.2%, accounting for better figure this month from February's 2.1%. This is also a leap from March 2024's 3.7%. The PSA is attributing the decline in prices to cheaper food and non-alcoholic beverages. Despite the drop and inflation settling within the target range, the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, is not letting its guard down. It vows to monitor risks and shocks that could come from increases in the prices of electricity, fish, and meat.
We're going to be pausing for a very quick break, but when we return, despite progress in recent years, there are still Filipinos who have difficulty accessing healthcare. So, how do we address this? We will be sitting down with Metro Pacific Health's Group CEO, Dr. Harish Pillay, next. Keep it here.
Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us here on The Big Story. Let's shift our focus to health. Metro Pacific Health is the largest private hospital network in the country with 27 hospitals nationwide, including Makati Medical Center and Cardinal Santos Medical Center. This year, they plan to expand and acquire more hospitals, strengthening their commitment to deliver quality healthcare services to more Filipinos. And to delve deeper into this, we have Dr. Harish Pillay, the Group Executive Officer of Metro Pacific Health. He brings 26 years of experience in hospital management across Asia, the Middle East, and North America regions. Welcome to The Big Story, Dr. Harish.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Well, a hot issue we just were discussing with the former Associate Justice of the Supreme Court was the PhilHealth funds and how our countrymen have to spend out of pocket when they fall ill because of deficiencies in the state, in the way the state has administered its universal health. So how is MPH going to help fill the void?
Well, we are truly inspired by our chairman's vision. MVP, as we fondly call him, he's a very proud Filipino, and he has given us the mandate that through this entity, Metro Pacific Health, we have to improve accessibility to all Filipinos throughout the country, improve affordability, and ensure a minimum quality of care. So that's really the core essence of our strategy in whatever we do. And yes, private sector, not just Metro Pacific Health, but I guess all private practitioners and providers in the country, we are partners to the tremendous work being done by the public sector. So we are shoulder by shoulder with the public sector colleagues to ensure that there is some degree of equity for healthcare provision in the country.
Dr. Harish, I was curious about your expansion plans. We've been familiar, of course, with MPH's acquisitions of some of the top hospitals around the country for a while now. But next year, I heard you plan to expand and acquire more. I, of course, am curious to know whether these will be, again, top-tier hospitals, or are we looking at something a little bit more different, something a little bit more universal, I suppose, is the word I'm looking for.
So if you look right now with 27 hospitals already in the country, we have a nice position in various important geographies, whether it's National Capital Region, where some of the best known brands, or as the regulator, the Department of Health calls it, the level 3 hospitals. We have a sizable representation in our portfolio. And if you go to Vismin area, we have presence in areas like Bacolod, Bohol. We have already 6 units across Mindanao. So the way we are looking at the country is that because of the massive investments in infrastructure, we see that there is a decentralized approach towards urbanization. More urban clusters are coming up, and usually when you have young families migrating to these urban clusters, the big demand is for social services, education and healthcare. We usually look at clusters where you have a rich pool of human resources, mainly doctors and nurses, for example. Is there space for expansion if it's a brownfield project? And that's how typically we take an acquisition decision. But yes, we remain confident that by Christmas this year, the family would be bigger.
And Dr. Harish, apart from your expansion plans, tell us about some of the key advancements that you're planning to implement to improve patient care in terms of facilities and technology.
So this again, I have to go back to our chairman's mandate, right? He often tells us that why are Filipinos, especially those who can afford, why are they traveling to Singapore for healthcare, especially in our region? Philippines is blessed with a rich plethora of human resources, like because of the curriculum design of training of doctors and nurses, you're really world class. When you look at from a global perspective, the Filipino nurse is a brand ambassador of the country. And most of the doctors, I mean, the skill sets they possess are truly unbeatable. So what we are trying to do from the private sector perspective is to create an ecosystem where complex services, which is really the need of the country, can be made more affordable and accessible through our network. So some examples is one of the largest hospitals in the network, Makati Medical Center. They have really gone about really pushing ahead with minimal access and robotic surgery programs. So they have already installed the state-of-the-art Da Vinci robotic system, which is already showing tremendous impact on patient care services, for example, in specialties such as urology, gynecology. So a lot of work is being done. On the other end, if you go to the south, Asian Hospital will be the first in the country to install a cyber knife, which is a cutting-edge technology where oncology, radiotherapy is concerned.
If you look at an institution like Cardinal Santos, they have something unique called an O-arm, which facilitates spinal surgery in a very safe, in a safe environment. So we look at the needs of our local communities and the clinical mix in each of our hospitals when we make these decisions. So this is one aspect which is expected of a hospital to be always at the cutting edge where medical technology is concerned. But some interesting thing when you look at network-wide is to enable patients wherever they are to be part of a collective ecosystem. So this is an ambitious project which we have embarked, what we call as the digital transformation of the entire network, is to connect the dots and to give a unique patient ID. So wherever you are in the country, if you have a Metro Pacific network hospital available, you should be able to access that without carrying your paper files in a physical form, because it's all easily accessible through digital. So that's an exciting transformation project which we are embarking right now.
Dr. Harish, in line with the digital transformation that you're about to undertake or in the process of, I just wanted to check in because after COVID or during COVID, telemedicine became a huge thing, and I know the Metro Pacific Health Group also invested big into that, remote patient care, telemetry. Is that still being pursued? Is that still a thing? And is it really actually helping to bridge all these gaps in terms of accessibility?
So, many times, our chairman MVP is a true visionary. Especially, he's much ahead of the rest of us, where his passion for the digital ecosystem is all about. He's been talking about AI, I guess, for the past 5-6 years. So MWell, which is a critical component of the Metro Pacific, the greater Metro Pacific environment, is basically the app technology to connect the consumer, in this case the patient, with the provider, who could be a clinician or let's say a hospital setup. So yes, there is a big focus in investing in more digital technologies to connect the dots and to, like I said, the whole approach is improving accessibility. So we call this the brick and click model of healthcare, where your traditional infrastructure, which is brick and mortar, and technology, which is the click, it all interfaces seamlessly.
I like that.
But Dr. Harish, a crisis is being faced by the country in terms of losing our health professionals to hospitals abroad. How do you intend to keep them here? What opportunities are there for growth in this ecosystem that you have?
So I guess this many parts of Asia have gone through this aspect of brain drain. So there are one school of thought which says that, hey, this is a brain drain, but the other aspect is it could also be looked at as a brain trust. The greatest gift for Philippines is its people, the human capital, which is so rich and diverse in this country, and your OFWs. Imagine that this is a unique country which can reach out to highly trained experts in most of the developed countries in the world. So there is a lot of reverse knowledge transfer and mentorship happening from the healthcare OFWs overseas to the domestic sector. But on the other side, infrastructure investments by groups like Metro Pacific is acting as a talent magnet for reversing the brain drain. And we have a lot of examples of highly qualified doctors and nurses coming back home because the infra here is on par, if not better than the most advanced countries. So I think this is a sure signpost of things to come.
And Dr. Harish, well, I just wanted to go back to a point you made earlier that a lot of Filipinos are going to Singapore to seek health care, treatment, especially for cancer. And unfortunately, that's quite costly also for them. So are cancer care centers, plans like that in the pipeline right now for you? And any partnerships in place to make high-quality healthcare affordable for Filipinos?
So I see something remarkable which has happened over the past 2 years is the changes being happening, at least what is being put into effect by PhilHealth, the national payer. We can see that there is a singular increase in coverage rates. When you talked about cancer care, which is rather expensive, PhilHealth has increased the coverage for cancer care, whether it's daycare, chemo infusions, for radiotherapy. So when PhilHealth steps in, the affordability quotient increases and hence accessibility improves. So earlier, let's say there were large queues and waiting lists in public facilities. Now, because PhilHealth has stepped in, I think a lot of patient populations are able to access high quality care in the private sector. So this is a big change, what we are seeing. And of course, as a private entity, we always look at responding to the needs of a community. So yes, there is a significant investments in multi-speciality centers where oncology would be a flagship center of excellence. So yes, that is definitely happening.
I guess one last question for me, Dr. Harish. I'm curious how the strategy is, to maintain the same quality of service across all the different hospitals from Luzon to Mindanao. A lot of these were acquisitions, right? So in the beginning, they all kind of maintain their own characters, their own personalities. But over time, how would you say that there's cohesion and quality control across the board? And how do you make sure that it stays that way?
Well, doctors, wherever they are all the same, and patients, as you know, nobody comes out of choice to a hospital. It's out of necessity. You might go for something else to a hotel, but when you come to a hospital, it's always some sort of pain, either physical or mental pain. As healthcare workers, we feel it's a blessing and a privilege to be of service to humanity. And these principles of basic empathy is something which binds all of us in the network. Of course, we have invested quite a bit on frontline staff, whether it's your non-clinical staff, your nurses, your doctors, your technician, and the thing which is a great blessing in Philippines is that a Filipino has got a core DNA of empathy built in. It makes service harmonization in healthcare so much easier. I have seen, I've heard a lot of anecdotes that even in the United States, patients in the ICU demand for a Filipino nurse to be at their bedside rather than of any other nationality. And here we are within our own country, blessed with all this naturally empathetic healthcare workers. It makes our job so much easier. So yes, there is a lot of management cohesion behind it. A lot of structured programs are going on, but half the battle is already won. Thanks to the natural resources and the cultural strength which we already have.
Indeed. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Dr. Harish Pillay, Group CEO of Metro Pacific Health.
And guys, listen to this, 38 days to go.
38 na lang ba?
Yes, before.
Thank
38
God.
days left on the campaign.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Okay, so 38 days to go before the midterm elections, and senatorial candidate Bam Aquino is bringing in the heat. So our big picture tonight takes us all the way to Tarlac, where the Aquino clan is out in full force. Bolsi Aquino Cruz, the cousin of the senatorial candidate, was seen engaging with voters in the Tarlac public market in Tarlac City. She was also joined by Bam's wife, sibling, and other members of the Aquino family. Bolsi Aquino Cruz, of course, is the daughter of former President Cory Aquino and former Senator Ninoy Aquino, and sister of former President Noynoy Aquino. All right.
It's
Friday.
I was waiting for the words to come out of the two of you.
Finally,
it's Friday.
So TGIF, that's it for the big story tonight and for the week.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you for watching. Have a good weekend. Good night.